This small recording is done to describe the different research methods that are going to be used in our assignment on descriptive research methods. The first thing we need to look at is qualitative versus quantitative data. Qualitative data looks at ideas, whereas quantitative data looks at numbers. Qualitative data will use those ideas to help put forth conclusions about how and why people experience what they do, whereas quantitative data will use numerical representation to provide proof about those same ideas. Case studies are our first type of research method. Case studies can be done either with an individual or a small group. Case studies are really great because they're revealing. They go in depth and tell us a lot about how a person feels and why they feel that way or why they may act a certain way. Same thing with a group. The big problem with a case study, however, is that the sample size is just far too small to make conclusions for all people. If you have one person or even a small group, like let's say 10, you're not going to have enough people to make representations about all people with a case study. The next research method is a survey. Surveys are great methods of research for understanding opinions that people have. Uh, These opinions, however, aren't always truthful, which can be a problem. One way to fix that problem is to make the survey anonymous. Surveys often will use numbers to represent their responses. So when a researcher takes the responses, they may look at it and see strongly agree equals 1 and strongly disagree equals 6, for example. And in using so, they can then develop numerical representations of all their participants' response. The other issues with surveys is when you have too small of a sample size or not a diverse enough sample size, where the numbers of people taking the survey are too small, or the types of people taking the survey are not different enough to represent all people. And finally, the last issue with a survey is with the framing. Sometimes questions are written with the intention of getting a certain result, but sometimes if they're written in such a way, the participants may interpret that question a different way than the researcher. This can cause them to get unintended results. The third method of research is observation. Observation is when we watch people carry out behavior. This can be done in a naturalistic setting, like watching elementary students at recess, or in a laboratory setting where we see a controlled experiment. Observation is a great tool to see what people are actually doing. Though we don't understand why they're doing it from the observation, we need a case study for that. Some of the problems with observation is when the view of the researchers are obstructed and they can't see every single person. So to do that, they might often have a team of researchers. This can cause them this. With this idea, though, the behaviors that they're looking for need to be clearly defined so that if one person is looking for happiness and the other person is looking for happiness, they don't end up seeing different things. Happiness will need to be clearly defined. The other main issue with laboratory observation is participant bias. If participants know they're being watched, they may unconsciously or sometimes consciously adjust their own behavior, which then, of course, will affect the data. A meta-analysis is a great tool when looking at the results of many different studies together. Combine all those studies' results, and you can get some overarching data about your topic that you're researching. The issue with meta-analysis, of course, is that you're not actually doing your own research. You're just taking the data from other researchers. Finally, we have an experiment. An experiment will always have two groups of people, one group who experiences a change and one group who doesn't. And then the effect of that change, like some sort of test, is measured with both groups taking that same sort of measurement and seeing the effect that that change has on that new measurement. Experiments are the best way to get cause and effect relationships. But the issue with experiments is that they take time. They're really, really slow, and they often need to be repeated over and over and over again. Those are the main research types of studies. Outside of the research studies, we also have cross-sectional and longitudinal studies. Cross-sectional studies look at a large cross-section of people, so like a lot of different age ranges, especially, showing how different age ranges or different groups of people experience the effect that the experiment is covering. And a longitudinal study will look at a single set of individuals, but look at them over a long period of time, like in some cases over even